Welcome into Point Blank, brought to you by Fitz Roofing. I'm Brandon Strange, and I'm joined as always by ESPN Houston's Joel Blank of the Press Box. Joel, welcome in. Last week, Peter Gammons reported that the Astros are prioritizing Red Sox outfielder Jackie Bradley Jr. in free agency, and it definitely makes sense that the Astros would want to be kicking tires on outfielders, especially considering Brantley and George Springer are both free agents. I'm having a hard time making sense of why Bradley Jr. would be a priority for the Astros. He doesn't have a very high career batting average, and yes, he's very athletic, but he's also about to turn 31. So I don't know what the dollar amount's going to be for Bradley. I'm curious if the Astros would be any better with Jackie Bradley Jr. than, say, running out Miles Straw in center. I'm not saying Straw is as good as Jackie Bradley, but comparative batting average is similar, with Bradley at 239 and Straw at 246. And while the sample sizes are definitely very different, if you lose Brantley or Springer, you need an incoming bat. Or if you lose, especially if you lose Brantley and Springer, you definitely need an incoming bat. Would it make more sense to reallocate those funds somewhere else, like a bat or Charlie Morton?
It does, Brandon. I think what you hit on the really big key in all of this is at what price? Because you still need a defensive outfielder. And let's not forget this. It was only a few short years ago in the playoffs that a guy by the name of Jackie Bradley Jr. hit the absolute cover off the baseball at Minute Maid Park. Some hitters hit better in certain places, and if he felt comfortable at Minute Maid Park, that might be something. We may be missing something analytically as well, but the analytical numbers that mean the most is at what price, because if you can get him at a good price, he is a very much above average center fielder. He plays great defense. He has speed. He has experience, and he does have some pop from time to time that can help you. But if you get him at the right price, you can still reallocate the funds to look at other pitchers like Brad Hand. You could look at a Charlie Morton. You could look at Corey Kluber. You could look at guys that really could come in handy for you as well. And there's also an Ozuna out there if you want to spend a little more at a guy that does what you're saying. He may not be a Gold Glove outfielder, but he brings a whole lot of pop and results at the plate that can help you as well. So I think that there are options and fixes if you lose Springer, but I also think somewhere in the back of the minds of the Astros brain trust, they're thinking we still can bring back and hold out hope that George Springer will come back to the Astros, hopefully at a more team-friendly price than a lot of people think. But the fact that he hasn't gotten over the $30 million range a year in terms of what people are guesstimating he gets, if you can get him for about $24 million a year, I really believe Jim Crane, it's in his best interest to go get him for that price for 4 or 5 years.
I think it might be interesting why we're hearing Jackie Bradley Jr.'s name floated out there, and maybe we can get a little conspiratorial on that. But before we do, give us a word from Fitz Roofing.
We love Fitz Roofing. They're dedicated to SportsMap, ESPN 97.5, but more so than anything else, they're dedicated to the people of Houston, Texas. So much so that you can get a free no-obligation inspection today. All you have to do is call them, 832-521-3001. They come to you. They tell you what they can do, from a new roof to repairs. They do it all, and then they go back on their way. If you want them to come back, just reach back out. They have the best warranties, the best products, and the best prices. Check them out today. Fitz Roofing, making a difference one home at a time.
So obviously leaks to the media are strategic. The media is given information because someone wants the public to know this. So there could be a couple different motivations for why someone would want the public to think that the Astros are very interested in Jackie Bradley Jr. One reason could be that the Astros want leverage to negotiate with Brantley and Springer, just to let them know that we have other options, or that the team has other options. The other possibility is Bradley Jr.'s agent leaked it to create leverage for his client, because we know from other leaks that there are several teams interested in Jackie Bradley Jr. Which way are you leaning on this?
I think that it's definitely probably from Jackie Bradley Jr. side, because you think about it. Who needs to have value within the market solidified more? George Springer? No. Michael Brantley? No. But Jackie Bradley Jr., because just like you reacted or I reacted or anybody reading the column or watching the video will react, they'll be like, wait a minute, this guy's a good athlete and a good defender, but offensively, he's not anything to write. He's no Mookie Betts, who played alongside of him. So why in the heck would the Astros look in that direction to replace George Springer? And why would other teams, not named the Astros, be interested in free agent Jackie Bradley Jr.? It's pretty easy. Leaks come from a whole lot of ways with a whole lot of meaning behind them, whether it's an agent, a player, or an organization. And in this case, I would tend to believe it's coming from Jackie Bradley's camp.
Well, and I think going back to your other point too, he's a guy in Bradley Jr. who has a low batting average but has pop. But you've got those guys on your team already. You've got a Martin Maldonado. You've got a Yuli Gurriel, which you hope Yuli's last year was just an anomaly,
Right.
but you don't know. Like he really struggled. So both of those guys are low batting average, high pop bats. You've got that on your lineup already. You're going to need some guys that can be on base consistently. I guess finally, kind of looking at this scenario with Bradley Jr., just putting a bow on this, I'm going to give you an either or, and you tell me which you'd prefer. Would you rather have Michael Brantley, Miles Straw, and Tucker in the outfield, or would you rather have Bradley Jr. in the outfield if it means Charlie Morton's in your starting lineup?
Ooh, that's interesting because I really believe they need one more veteran starter. And I also think they need bullpen help. And I think that from the closer to the middle relief, a guy like Brad Hand might also sway me to think I'll take Jackie Bradley Jr., Brad Hand, and or Charlie Morton Jr. if I have to. But to be honest, and I hate to be the black cloud, I have a hard time believing with everything we've heard out of the Astros that either Springer or Brantley come back. If that means you get a veteran outfielder so that I don't have to see Miles Straw every day and you still have some money to play with that can get you one or more pitching prospects, veteran pitchers, I should say, then I'm going to lean that way.